Welcome to the Richmond Film Network Podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Hello and welcome to the Richmond Film Network Podcast. I'm Lisa Giles, and with me today is Michael Thibodeau, creative director, co-founder, and producer at the Sunroom video production company. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lisa. This is great.
So, Hamburger. Hamburger just won Best Film, Audience Choice, Best Original Music, Best Actor, and Best Use of Genre at the Richmond 48-Hour Film Project. And for those who aren't aware, the 48-Hour Film Project is a global competition in its 25th year where teams of filmmakers come together to write, shoot, and edit a short film in 48 hours. How did you manage to not only survive the chaos of the 48, but thrive in it with all these awards that you won?
That's a great question. We've been asking ourselves that as well. No, we had a really great team work on this short film this year. It just takes a village to make anything happen. And we've been doing 48 hours as a group for a couple years on and off. And also as just individual artists, we've kind of dabbled here and there with separate projects, but been doing it for a long time. So once you start doing it and learning what works and doesn't work, you kind of start to realize how you want to go into it.
So the story, a group of friends, lunch date takes a turn after one too many ingredients on the menu. And I understand that the story comes from a personal inspiration. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So with 48 hours, you're given a genre at the beginning of the weekend. You're given two that you can choose from. And ours was either food film or thriller / suspense. And when we saw food film, for me, going into it as the writer, my relationship with food has always been funny because I've had allergic reactions my whole life. And so I was drawn to that as inspiration and went with it. Every time I go to restaurants, it's typically on the menu as cheeseburger, which I think is just funny because I always get a hamburger. The amount of times I've talked to a waiter or waitress and just asked for a cheeseburger with no cheese is pretty hilarious.
Let's talk about the Sunroom as a media production company. It's a 4-person video collective born in the pandemic, rooted in DIY energy with local musicians, including your sister, Deau Eyes. Can you trace the transition from your experimental origins to the streamlined professional entity that you're running today?
Yeah, so the Sunroom was started by myself and Alec and Ryan Gary, and then later we brought in Colin White, who we all are local filmmakers and have been for quite some time. And, we all have different, backgrounds that kind of round each other out. So we started working together as freelancers on different projects. And then we started to think like, why are we working with other people or for other people when we can work for ourselves and find our own work? And we all really gelled and started a business. So like you said, it started out like very DIY. We do a lot of music videos and live sessions in the area with a lot of local musicians and artists, and including my sister, like you had mentioned. And we just kind of rolled with it and started to fall in love with the art of filmmaking and just creating things specifically together with our collective vision of what the Sunroom is. And it's kind of grown and grown throughout the years and continues to grow. And we're very grateful for the community who's supported us the whole way.
Can you break down each of your roles and the ways that your working chemistry contributes to the Sunroom identity?
Yeah, so we have Alec Gary, who is director of photography. He's our main cinematographer here at the Sunroom. And he also is an editor and a colorist. So he kind of has the through line from production to post-production. You've got Colin White, who is a cinematographer with us as well, and an editor, our main editor, and Ryan Gary, who is our sound engineer and sound mixer and also our drone pilot. So we got the three of them, and then myself, I'm the creative director and producer. So I handle the majority of the pre-production planning when it comes into any project we're working on, and then following it throughout post and getting it executed.
So for your 48, you had that core team, but you also brought in others. Can you talk about the others that you brought in and how that came about?
Yeah, we had an incredible crew on this 48 hour. 48 hour came about this year like it always does, and it's always on the back of our minds as just a fun creative outlet and a great way to kind of stretch our creative muscles for a very short period of time. And I saw it on the horizon, and I just really wanted to do it myself. And I kind of went into it as a mentality of like, all right, what happens if you just do it one person solo? I'm going to sign up with the idea of just doing it myself. And the more we were talking just in the office and stuff, the more it was just like, all right, that wouldn't be as fun as just all collectively coming together. And then unfortunately, our editor, Colin, was out of town for the summer, so we didn't have him on board. But luckily, we've been wanting to work with a lot more people in the community and kind of stretch farther than our Sunroom core and just kind of see what it's like to work with different people in the industry. And we've been lucky to dabble here and there on smaller projects, but we roped in some people we've really been wanting to work with, including editor Woody Chapman, as well as Quincy Copage, who was assistant camera on this, Andrew Nixon, who was best actor, and all kinds of people. And then, of course, in my arsenal of people, I have my sister, Deau Eyes, who I can call up and she can whip up a original song for the credits at any point for any project. So very lucky for this crew that came together on this, and got to meet a lot of new people as well, like our sound operator, Jackson Luck, and Lewis Rivers, who was in it as well.
Tell me about your sister's song. There's a story there, how that came together, which ended up winning Best Original Music. At what point do you say, sis, I need you to do this? And what were the instructions? And how was that incorporated into the whole weekend? Because, again, you got 48 hours, you got your story, you're shooting it. And then at what point does she come in? Is there back and forth feedback and all that?
Yeah, so, music is always such a great part of any film. It just really brings it to life in a new way and different way. And early on, immediately really wanted to bring Allie on board to do some sort of original song just because she has the capabilities to do it, and thought it would be fun. The big goal for me is that everybody who's a part of the 48 hour team is having fun and being creative, and that's the biggest goal. So going into it, I knew that I wanted her to write something, and that Friday night as I was writing the script, I just thought, didn't have a title until Sunday, but I thought I wanted a song, I wanted her to do a jingle, and for some reason I felt inspired by the Juno soundtrack from the movie Juno. And so I reached out to her after we had filmed all day on Saturday, and I said, all right, this is what it's about. This is the tone that I would love for it to be. And then I said, if you can throw in like a lyric about 48 hour, just kind of highlighting what the project is and, what it was dedicated for, that'd be awesome. And she sent it back to me within like 20 minutes. There were no notes, and it was, incredible.
That's insane. That is insane. And wins Best Original Music. So how is that brother and sister? Is it always that seamless? Do you have sibling rivalry at times, or what is that dynamic like usually?
Good question. No, the two of us are very locked in, and we just really are inspired by each other and push each other, and just creatively with anything we're doing in our lives, we're kind of keeping each other in the loop and just super supportive. I'm very lucky.
I love that. That's so sweet. So tell me about any highs and lows from the weekend. Things that we'd have no idea about unless you told us.
Yeah, so we went into it completely blind, waiting for the genre to kind of decide how we were going to go about our film. But you always want to lock in a location or at least have a couple on deck as options. So earlier that week, before 48 Hour started, I just did a big Instagram blast to probably 50 different locations in Richmond and just kind of reached out to a lot of different people just through their business Instagram accounts. And luckily we had a lot of feedback, whether it was, no, thank you so much, or no, there's actually another 48 Hour team
Yeah.
shooting on our site that day. But we had 5 or 6 people being like, yeah, we're down. Whatever you need, let us know. These are the hours that would work for us. One of those was Bamboo Cafe, which we ended up filming in. And Bamboo Cafe has been my favorite dive bar in Richmond forever. And so I've always kind of dreamed of filming there. And for that to work out for this piece that I was writing and directing felt very much like the stars aligned. So that was definitely a high for me. Also, just working with the crew sounds cliche to say, but we all just had such a good time making this together. And there was not a single part of the weekend that I don't want to speak on everyone's behalf, but I think it was a very stress-free weekend, and it was all just fun, and we all got sleep. That was another thing where going into it, I was like, everybody's got to make sure you sleep. We're not in college anymore. We're not going to pull an all-nighter. If that works for you, cool, but our whole team deserves their sleep. So that was another high. But lows, the rain happened. That was a low for everybody probably. So it kind of rocked the boat as far as scheduling goes, but we were able to adapt and work around it very well. And I think that's just something you gotta be ready for. You gotta be ready for anything and be ready to adapt. And luckily our team was.
Well, you had at least 3 locations off the top of my head. You had Bamboo, you had what was the hospital, you had the outdoor scene. That's very ambitious for a 48 to have all those locations. So even to get all of that for a short film in 48 hours, that's incredible. So talk about that kind of coordination.
Yeah. The week leading up, trying to lock those locations was crucial on my end, just going into it with the comfort level of having options and reaching out to these different locations and being like, hey, depending on the script, we don't have it written yet. We don't even have an idea of what genre it is, but it may work, it may not. I hope you understand the flexibility of this, and just being very kind to everybody you interact with. And so we ended up doing 3 locations, writing it the night before, knowing we had Bamboo, that was going to be the bulk of our location. And then that night, as I was writing, I was also communicating with different locations as different possibilities, and then just kind of trying to just keep going forward and make a decision and land on it. But the night before we started shooting, we had a script together with a false ending because we didn't have a third location for the ending. And so the second location was a car, and we knew that car could go somewhere. As far as I was building the script, the car was definitely going to end up somewhere. But day of, as we're filming at Bamboo, probably a couple hours in to those scenes, I started to try to just multitask and figure out how this story could end. And I remembered that a family friend of ours owns a chiropractor practice out in Chester, Virginia, Breckenridge, and just made a call and was like, hey, if we can make your place look like a hospital, that would be great. If you can send me some photos, awesome. We'll be there in 2 hours. So it worked out. And then on the lunch break, finished the ending, writing the ending. And yeah, like I said, lots of stars had to align for us to feel, this proud of what we made.
Amazing. Amazing. Definitely stars aligned. Now let's talk about that beautiful red car. It's a genius visual anchor. I want to know who owns it. I want to know the make, model, and history of the car and how you got that. And why that vehicle? Because you could have had a Honda Accord, but no, this car is very special. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So the car came about as like a last minute option as well. I reached out to the Lily Pad, which is a restaurant a little bit past Rockets Landing here in Richmond, and it's right on the waterfront. And the owner was so kind and responded and just said, yes, I own the Lily Pad, but I also own multiple marinas in the area, as well as lots of woods, and I have an old vintage car. So that kind of caught my eye, just being an option in general, because I'm a big fan of old cars, and I think they bring a lot to the table when you're making something so fast and at such a small budget like this. If you can pull off a favor that visually is compelling and looks like a bigger budget than it is, people are willing to throw favors your way. That's what I've learned as well, as people want to be a part of creative processes. And, this guy, his name is Max Walraven, who was kind enough to let us borrow the car for an hour and trust us so that, we weren't going to damage it or anything. Luckily, we've had a lot of experience rigging cars for different shoots in the past for music videos in town and different opportunities. So we knew that we were capable of doing that, and we're lucky to pull it off. And I love that car. And we just used it because it was at our disposal, really. But I loved that it matched. It's a red car, for those who haven't seen it yet, but it matched the awning of Bamboo Cafe. Mm-hmm. And I just loved this like through line of red. And then I asked Andrew Nixon, who played the lead, who has the allergic reaction. I remembered he had a Flying Squirrels hat, a Richmond Flying Squirrels hat. So I was like, if he could wear that, that would be awesome, because it's just got the red in there as well. And it's an homage to Richmond. And I just wanted to embrace Richmond as much as I could, because I love the city. And if we were to make something in the Richmond 48 hour, then might as well give a little tribute to certain things.
That explains the red poster as well.
Yeah. So I kind of, once we got Bamboo, I really wanted to kind of aesthetically make everything based on the awning at Bamboo Cafe. So the typeface for the poster and the style, it's kind of got like a 1950s fast food or old hamburger stand look.
I see you, Michael. That's so thoughtful. I love that. I love that. The details matter.
Yeah.
So for your commercial work, you do the branded storytelling, weddings, music videos, events. Any other narrative or short films?
Yeah. So we've been very lucky to work with a lot of different writers in Richmond and beyond Richmond in doing a lot of short films. Quincy Copage, who worked on Hamburger as AC, he's an incredible writer and director in town, and our team has worked on a lot of his projects. And there's a couple other writers in town as well. Nathan Piscator, who we did 48 Hour with a couple years back. Mm-hmm. So we're always trying to uplift local screenwriters, and just as a production company, we want to support local artists, and that's why we work with so many different musicians and writers. But narrative work, it's kind of always there. We're always kind of trying to dabble with some narrative here and there. This definitely inspired me to want to write a lot more narrative work. Hopefully more of that happens for me and our whole team in the future.
So one of the prizes for winning the Richmond 48 is that your film gets to go to Filmapalooza. And Filmapalooza is the grand finale where over 100 cities around the world compete in the 48, and the winning films from each city compete in the grand finale. And for 2026, it'll be in Lisbon, Portugal. 1, are you going? 2, what do you hope to take away from that experience?
Yeah, I do plan on going. My fiance Maggie, she was in the film as well. She was nominated for Best Actress. She was the sommelier waitress. And she's hilarious in the film. And anyways, shout out to her. But her and I are getting married in a couple weeks, and so we were kind of planning our honeymoon throughout the summer, and then this came about, and we're like, all right, what if we just push our honeymoon and go somewhere in Europe? So we plan on going to Portugal together to film a Palooza, which super excited about. Been doing a little bit of research, and just looks like a great event and hosted by some great people. But yeah, we plan on doing that and then going to our honeymoon right after.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize it's just clicking as you're saying that. You introduced me to your fiance. It didn't click that she was the waitress. Oh my goodness. You were
Yeah.
surrounded by talent.
Yeah. She's an incredible actor.
She is.
She was working in New York for a long time, and then she recently moved back, luckily for me and everyone in the community. Recently moved back, and yeah, going into this project, I knew that I wanted to pull her in and have her be a part of the project, but she was only available until 10 a.m. on Saturday. And so we filmed her scene in about an hour from 8:30 to 9:30, and she just knocked it out of the park. And
She so did. She so did.
For her to get nominated with just a few lines was pretty awesome, and she was very shocked and excited, as was I. Not shocked, but excited.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. So the Horror 48 is coming up in October. Will the Sunroom be part of that?
Unfortunately, the Sunroom will not. Like I said, I'm getting married October 4th, so it's the weekend after, and the Sunroom guys are in the wedding party and filming the wedding and the wedding band and all of the things. So we're going to have a pretty busy weekend the weekend before. So unfortunately, we're not, but sounds awesome. Would love to be a part of a horror film. Yeah, maybe next year.
So you had touched on back in 2022 was the last time that Sunroom was part of the 48 and walked away with a Best Actress award with Sydney Murray. I think has her last name changed since then?
It has, yeah. Sydney Gary now, yeah.
Okay, right. She got the Best Actress award. So thinking back to that time 3 years ago and now, how has your perspective about the 48 changed since then?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely, between then and now, in the last 3 years, we've had a lot more work. We've grown just as a production company, so a lot of our workflow has gotten more polished. And so, yeah, the experience helps. I mean, making things consistently helps, and then going into 48-hour, that's just bound to help you. But we've got our core team of 4, but we always try to tackle things, especially narrative works, with different people. So I think me being the writer and director of this was a different angle that we haven't done together before. So it's always going to change things, who you're working with.
Okay, let me ask you some quick rapid fire type questions, like the lightning round.
Cool.
What was the very first shot that you filmed for Hamburger?
Ooh, first shot. I think the first shot was at Bamboo Cafe, the four of the friends sitting together at the booth. We just kind of jumped right into that.
Best late night editing snack.
Oh man, I'd have to ask Woody Chapman that one. Shoot, that's a good question. Sliced apples.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads me to another quick question. Are you in the editing room?
I was in the editing room all day on Sunday, but on Saturday, we actually, a good strategy for those listening or who wants to know some pro tips, I guess. It's always cool to have an editor on set with you. And so we can dump footage and they can start cutting on set. And then Woody just continued to cut until about 12:30 or 1 on Saturday. and had a rough ready for us to all review on Sunday. But I just kind of wanted him to have that rough pass and trusted him on that. He had the script, he had our notes from the production day, and would check in, but I didn't want to overwhelm him. And so we got into really fine tuning it the next day.
Which is harder, shooting in 48 hours or filming a wedding?
I guess it depends on who's getting married and also what genre you get.
Oh, good answer, Mike.
Yeah.
All right. Another, besides Bamboo, a local Richmond location you're dying to film in.
Ooh. Man, that was a big one, so I've lost sight on anything else. But it'd be cool to film at the Diamond before they close their doors. But there's also this Richmond motel, like off of Chamberlain, that used to have a vintage sign that I loved. Since then, they've changed the sign, which I'm disappointed by. But the motel looks very old school and could be really cool.
Favorite film for pure inspiration?
The Florida Project.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one. If the Sunroom brand were an ingredient on a film menu, what would it be and how would you describe its flavor?
I guess it would be a hamburger with no cheese.
Oh, great. Makes sense.
I feel like I got to say that. Or a gusher.
What is a gusher?
Gusher is like an old 90s candy snack.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What flavor?
All the flavors.
I love it. Well, Mike, this has been great fun. Tell our viewers how they can keep up with the Sunroom and what they have going on next.
Yeah, you can follow us on all social media platforms at TH Sunroom and our website, thesunroom.co. Up next, we're working on a pretty big documentary right now that I can't say too much about, but that's on the horizon. And yeah, we're just looking to work with as many talented musicians out there as possible. So
fantastic. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network Podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.